Hello, everyone, and good morning. Today, I'm very excited to share this video with you. This is after lots of emails that I have received um, asking me about tips as to how to retain the information that you learn before an exam. So, what I've done is collated in this video information as to how I used to revise effectively for my exams. But this information that I'm going to talk to you and share with you is actually evidence based, it's backed by research, but importantly, it's worked for me and for lots of other candidates who have passed their exams. Right, so when you begin a task, the most important thing is this quotation, which comes to mind. The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. Now, you cannot revise if you don't put your act together and start the revision process. You can't just keep thinking about your revision. You can't just keep dreaming about your revision. You can't keep postponing your revision. You have to get down and start doing it. Now, whether that means that you take a pen and paper in your hand, if you revise in the most traditional sort of way, or you use an iPad or a notepad, entirely your choice. But whatever you do, you have to get your act together, sit and start. That's the first step. Right, so what do I mean by active learning? Now, active learning is a process in which you engage all your senses. So you've got sense of sight, you've got sense of taste, smell, hearing, touch. Now, what you're going to try and do is, for example, if you were sat to revise, some revision material online, you're going to bring up the guideline or whatever article that you're looking at. You're going to look at the articles, that's your sense of sight that you're using. You're going to try and write that article or the important revision points from that article onto a piece of paper. Now that's your sense of touch. So you've engaged your sight, your touch. Now you're going to listen, so you're going to say it aloud. And that's your sense of hearing, talking that you're going to be using in order to keep your brain fully engaged. Now, research has backed this to say that the more senses you use in order to do any task in your life, the more likely that you will remember that task for your life. So now if you're revising important information for exam, it's important to try and engage lots of things. And I used to do this quite a lot, where I would write down revision points onto flashcards. What I would then do is read them aloud, so I'm listening to myself, and then I would try and test my memory. That way I'm trying to engage everything I've got in order to maximize my learning. Now, the alternative is passive learning, where all you do is, watch a screen and just try and write down important points, but you don't say it aloud, you don't listen to yourself, then you're less likely to retain that information. Right, so then we move on to spaced repetition. Now, there is no way in the world that you introduce a new concept or a new information for your brain and expect it to remember it word to word until forever. That's just absolutely not possible. So what you need to do is do spaced repetition of the same material. So for example, if you write something, if you make a flashcard or revision notes today, then you want to try and visit this information again tomorrow, day after, a few days later, a week later, until it starts building those lines in your memory. That is what you need in order to retain that information. So repeat, repeat, repeat. Now, some people find it useful to write the information, so you can write it the first time, write it again, write it again, write it again, in order to keep your senses engaged. The more senses you engage, the more likely you will carry on to remember that information for a long time. Right, so teaching others. Now, this is where your group work and group revision comes into the picture. Now, if you think you have revised an article or a page from a textbook or a guideline online, and in order now you've engaged all your senses, you've learned it really well. Now, how do you know you've actually learned it well and you really understand it? Now, the only way I found that this was most effective was by being able to teach others. So if I don't have a group to revise with, or I don't have people to explain to, sometimes I used to talk to myself looking at the mirror. That way, I would talk about the topic, for example, it's postpartum hemorrhage. I talk about it and say, right, do I understand what postpartum hemorrhage is? Can I define it to myself? Can I differentiate minor from major? Can I talk about the different ways to treat postpartum hemorrhage? What are the causes of postpartum hemorrhage? And am I able to talk about this freely without having to look at my revision material? That's when I know that I've learned a topic well. So teaching others and engaging in group work is where you're able to talk about concepts, and that's how the concepts then take more affirmation in your brain because you've talked about it, you've understood it really well. Right, so next thing which is really important is to use mnemonics. Now, where do mnemonics help with your revision is where there's a lot to revise. As you know, there's lots of material for MRCOG Part 1, 2 and 3 to go through. Now, if you were to just read off lists and just try and retain those lists, you're likely to forget a cause, for example, or treatment plan and so forth. So you'll see that there is lots of mnemonics that are being used in important revision materials in order to be able to retain that information. Now, again, this is evidence-based as well. You're more likely to retain and remember that information if you have gone through mnemonics. So do try and summarize and try and highlight and make it into little mnemonics that you're more likely to retain and remember when it comes to that topic in the exam, which it will hopefully mean that you don't forget anything for your exams. Right, so next thing, which is again absolutely crucial, is your is staying as healthy as possible, and that can be quite challenging when you've got lots of things ongoing in your life. But that's life, and if it was not for that, then it would be dead. So the difference between life and death is the things that we have always ongoing. Now, that might be work, that might be family, that might be holiday plans, whatever it is. But in order for you to revise well, focus, and be able to retain, you have to have a healthy lifestyle, which means you're hydrated, you slept well, you're exercising. Now, one important thing that I did start to do in order to be able to maintain my anxiety during my revision period was HIIT revision, which is high intensity interval training, and that's something that I employed. I had to start doing in order to calm my nerves down, because you have to be able to use all that anxiety and all that extra energy that the adrenaline is giving you in a productive manner. You don't want to be sat there worrying about the exam or your revision. And by doing HIIT workouts, that's how I was able to put my energy to in a useful manner, so I could still concentrate and revise. And because it was something healthy, it actually gave me more productive energy to be able to sit down and revise for long hours. I hope these tips will really help you in order to create a healthy lifestyle around revision, so you're not completely panicked, totally anxious or stressed about your revision, but equally you know that these tips and tricks have worked for somebody, so they're more likely to work for you if you employ them into your revision habits. Now, don't forget, I have got a website with updated MRCOG Part 2 revision notes, both for the guidelines and for the TOG articles. Now these are some of the materials that I have actually prepared myself, going over word to word of the guidelines. They're already summarized, ready for you, so if you were to buy a copy for yourself, I am 100% sure you will not be disappointed, because this is the material I used for my exams in order to pass it the first time. And it will save you lots of time, it will save you lots of energy to be going through all the guidelines to summarize things, because it's all done for you. So take benefit, take advantage of it, and good luck revising.